So this week's episode of Dororo really was made for me. It's really what I was anticipating and really highlights what I was talking about with last week's review. For those that didn't watch last week's review, pretty much the essence of what I was talking about was how this story is a lot more complex than most adventure series out there, where you have your main character and their goal, and you root for that goal and you call it a day once the story is concluded. But here, we got a pretty complex decision of, well, you got a kid who kind of got born into the wrong family, got screwed over, and now has to rebuild his body piece by piece in a very painful and not very human and kind of nice way. But the issue is that yes, you have a lord who is doing something for his own personal gain, but that own personal gain has benefited an entire kingdom. This entire group of people are prospering because of a very horrible and very evil deed. So you have to ask, well, what's the right outcome? Do you root for the character who is going to regain what he's lost at the expense of pretty much all these innocent people? Yes, the father would pay, but really, look at the thousands of lives I would suffer in return. Or do you let this kid, who is now a pretty young adult, get killed for the better of humanity? Like, that's a very hard question to answer, which is what makes it such a very morally gray story. So this episode is really what I was looking for, where we get perspective on all sides. We get perspective on the parent side. We get perspective on the people of this kingdom. I mean, we've been traveling from place after place after place. We're seeing most of the people are starving. They're not doing well in this time of war. But then when we get here, people are having parties. They're having plays. They're having plays worshiping their lord because their lord is the reason that they have food in their stomach, why their families can sleep at night not going hungry and not feeling like they'll get shot in their sleep. You're seeing it from all sides. You're seeing it from, of course, Hikamaru's side. We're seeing it from the brother's side. We're seeing it from every side. And that's what we need to see. If this was just a one-core series, I'd say that we were definitely approaching the climax, but we know that it's carrying over into the spring 2019 anime season, so there's still a lot more room to go with this story. But to have this around the middle mark where we get to see pretty much all sides now, we've seen on the outside kingdoms, we've seen on the inside, we've seen what it looks like for life of people who've been kind of, unfortunately, been granted prosperity because of some evil demons, or we can see what it looks like when you have a noble and righteous leader who's not selling their unborn son to demons, and we see what kingdoms look like once we leave this city. This episode was a very intense episode for not having a whole lot of action. Sure, there was action near the end of the episode, which was fun, but that was really just the icing on the cake. The main meat and potatoes for this episode was really conversation and dialogue, and I loved it. We get reintroduced to the priest in this episode. He's been trying to figure out what's going on. He wanted to take a look at the demons that supposedly are stored up away. And I like how one of the first things he says to our main character is how, like, he recognizes that he's killed people. He sees the red in his soul. And I think it really reinforces the idea that if Dororo didn't stop Hikamaru after he was kind of going on a rampage when his love was killed, he might have been too far gone. His soul might have been too tainted. If he's already being tainted in this way from a couple of kills, who knows what would have happened if he hadn't been pulled back into normal reality. So I really like that because I think some people might forget that him killing people, it shouldn't be something that we really root for. I mean, sure, in that sequence back 6 or so episodes ago, we were like, oh yeah, kill these people for what they've done, but still, we gotta look at what it does to someone's soul, and we're seeing that he is tainted, even if only a little. So I like how it really reinforces that, and I think just seeing the priest's perspective of when he does go to the temple, he's just kind of like, oh shit, things aren't right. I mean, this is a very hard story to predict where it should or even where you want it to go, and that's really, really exciting. But I like how we just have our characters kind of wandering this city, seeing the different just people and how, like, they're having these plays. They're talking about how, like, man, it's kind of weird that some of this bad shit's happening, but Lord Diego, he does everything for us. Look at our lands. We have grass. We have crops. No one else does. We gotta believe in him. Yes, we know who he is, but the thing with it is that there's no leaders who truly get into politics for the good of all people. You might be able to count, like, on a hand how many good people truly were, but the thing with it is a good leader, they'll implement policies that will benefit the people while they do whatever they are doing for their own political gain. This father is a scumbag. He's horrible. He's despicable, but you can't argue he's absolutely helped his people because of his horrible and disgusting deed. And the issue is because you're dealing with demons, do you really think demons are going to willingly make another trade? No, it's either you give us back this baby or your entire kingdom's gonna fall. Even if he offered himself, I don't think the demons would accept that because that wasn't the original deal. So yes, you have a horrible and despicable leader who literally destroyed his son for political gain. he might argue that he's doing it because for his people, but he really just wants to be the top dog in this kingdom, which honestly is not a bad thing because you can see what it's doing for his people. Yes, he's also hurting other people in the process. That's the hard thing about this story, is the correct outcome isn't actually a morally right one, and that's what's really, really tough. And I do like how the mother, she does call it out. They do have a conversation because once they do realize that it is their son, she's saying like, are you really just doing it for, the benefit of others, or are you doing it for yourself? And of course he's going to get mad at that because he's kind of corrupted his own thought process. And I don't know where I want this story to go, because on one hand, it feels like the correct outcome would be our main character giving up his life and hopefully the body parts going back to demons so the kingdom could continue to flourish. But at the same time, it can't be that easy. And I love our main character. I love what's going on. But the unfortunate truth is I think that even if his father wanted to give up his life for the good of people, demons aren't going to agree to that. Why would they? They're demons. They're going to make the very questionable deals. So it's kind of hard to say where it should or even where it will go. I really did like, though, having his brother kind of, once again, really surprising me. I shouldn't be surprised because he really impressed me last week, but after the events of, Hikamaru coming in and saving the day, he doesn't act overly proud. Sure, he's upset that he couldn't be the one to save his friends and companions, but he thanks him. He says, thank you for this. If it wasn't for you, he'd be dead. And I like how, yes, he's upset with himself, but he's more upset with himself because in the dojo, no one can beat him. But then when it comes to an actual battlefield, he feels like he was useless. And I think that's a really impressive and very respectable mindset where, yeah, he's mad that he had to come in and save the day, deliver the finishing blow. He probably wouldn't have got there in time. He probably couldn't pull that friend out from the demon's mouth. So he's upset with himself, but he thanks the characters. He thanks our main characters, which I think is a really nice and respectful thing to do. I mean, granted, Dororo does kind of pull the money card, and I thought it was kind of like a time and a place for everything. Granted, they did make some cash money off that, but I kind of was like really in the moment, and then when we see the kind of comedical stuff, I'm like, God damn it, Dororo. We're trying to have a family moment here. We're trying to have some emotional bonding, and you gotta pull the money card. God damn it. Which I kind of love and hate all at the same time. But it's nice to see that he's kind of piecing together what's going on. He's listening into his family. He's trying to piece together what the hell's going on. And I love how you see this crazy woman in this episode who's kind of like, at first glance, she sees Hikamaru and is like, oh god, this is the demon baby coming to rip everything. And you're like, okay, she recognizes. But then she says the same line to his brother, and I was like, okay, maybe she's just insane and says that to everyone. But then when she really breaks it down, saying like what's going on to kind of open up his eyes, I was like, holy shit. People are getting a lot of information right now, and the fact that we end the episode with our main character reuniting with his father, holy shit, next week is going to be intense. In terms of the actual action for the fox fight, I thought that was pretty cool. There wasn't anything overly special about it, past the fact that there was a lot of fox spirits. They're kind of all coming at our main character, but he was slicing through them pretty easily. The main thing I liked about it was how it was a little different from all the other fights because they were more floating spirits, and they just had this really interesting aura kind of radiating from them. I love how he was just slashing them, the way the flames were kind of lighting up. It looked gorgeous. I love how when they merge into a bigger one, it was a very intense, but not that intense fight kind of wrapped up into one, because you didn't feel like he was going to die or really suffer, any losses. I just thought it was kind of intense with how he was going to deal with it, because you have this kid who's trying to run back and find his village, while you have our main character trying to fight off these spirits and give them enough time, which I really, really like. But to see his father at the end, I was like, holy shit, like, it can't end there because we have another core left, but I'm interested to see what will happen. I'm really interested to see if Hikamaru can actually see the soul well enough that he can recognize that's family. If he could recognize that was his brother, if he can recognize that was his father, that's going to be really fun. I'm sure some people are going to kind of shit on the kid who kind of ran away while two people were fighting for him, but at the end of the day, this kid really wants to see his parents, he wants to see his village, and this was a way to break through. So I don't even blame the kid. Obviously, you knew it wasn't going to go well. He does get captured alongside Dororo, but still, you can't really blame a kid who finally has an opportunity after all this time since his wall went up to kind of do something. I just love just seeing how well this kingdom is truly doing. Even after so many demons have been taken, they're still doing so much better than everyone else in this area. And I love how you'll just have these moments where you're just looking and you're saying like, okay, let's kill the Lord. Let's kill the Lord and just go back to having a guy with his entire body. But then you'll see these people so happy and just worshiping this man. And I think even if they learn the truth that the Lord sold his unborn son to demons for prosperity for his kingdom, yeah, maybe many wouldn't want to break bread with the guy anymore, but they wouldn't change their opinion. The masses wouldn't. Because the unfortunate truth with people is that we're selfish. We're very selfish, and of course sometimes we'll say we want the good for everyone, but then when it comes at the cost for our own personal lives, we say, well, maybe we need to find a different solution. If they learned that the Lord did this, they might want to say, well, what the hell, give him back his body. But once they learn that giving back the body would mean that they have to go back to being poor and having shitty land to grow crops on, they would say, screw that kid. That's the unfortunate truth with people, and that's why it's going to be so interesting to see where this kingdom will go as he regains his body, because you know he's going to regain most of his body, if not all of his body, before this anime wraps up, and to see the aftermath of that. So I'm really curious to see where the people will go, where this kingdom will go, because I don't like Diego. I want him to die, but at the same time, his death won't really do much. That's not going to bring back his body. That's just going to put maybe the mother in charge or the son in charge. That's not going to do much for me. So his death really is the last thing on my mind. It's more, where should our main character go? Should he regain his body at the cost of so many innocent lives who were just born into this kingdom? That's what I like about stories, where they can really push the moral boundaries and make you think, I don't know where this should go, so I'm just going to sit back and relax and see where the anime is going to take me, and whatever happens, happens, and I'll think about it past them. This was an incredible episode, one of the strongest episodes, honestly, in my opinion. I love what it did. I love how it was reinforcing what I was really thinking about, and I'm glad that they're showing to anime viewers, because sometimes people don't really clue in and kind of focus on what's really at stake here. It is more than just a guy regaining his body. There's a lot of little pieces at play, and this episode kind of highlights and structures everything. I'm loving that we're finally hearing more and more dialogue through our main character. It's very simple, but I like how he's kind of picking up words behind the scenes. We don't need to see every single time he learns a word or sits around a campfire to kind of learn how to talk. I'm glad that we'll come into an episode and you'll say a little more each time. It feels like a gradual progression of him learning how to talk with other characters, which is really nice. Next week can't come soon enough. Let me know what everyone thought of this week's episode of Dororo down in the comment section below. Did you love it? Did you hate? Your favorite moment? Where do you think next week's gonna go after that cliffhanger? Let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.